Yeah, okay. His guide is also yes. You can start, Sai Theja.
Yes, sir. Is my screen visible, sir?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Go ahead.
So, yes, sir. Good afternoon, sir. I'm Sai Theja. So, the topic that I have chosen for my architecture thesis is hope and beyond for the mentally ill. So, before going to the introduction of the topic, so whenever we hear this term mental health, mental illness, mentally ill people, so the term which comes to mind is how hopeless, the hopelessness of their people, how depressed they are, how stressful they are. The environment which they live in is how so pathetic. So that is one category which our mind thinks, and the second thing is the society, the stigma the society has created. Although they are being recovered, the society tries to keep away these people. So as Sarat sir was telling morning of the phenomenology in architecture, architecture has so much of potential in evoking emotions, through phenomenology, to creating a sense of place, to creating a physical environment. So here my question came: whether could architecture be potential? Could architecture be used as a major tool in creating a better environment, in creating a better space for such people, and at the same time, could public participation could also be more actively used to break that stigma? So this basic thesis is to redefine, or to use architecture as a major tool for their living, to get better, healthier, safer. So firstly, to start with, sir, the introduction sheet. So firstly, I had to understand various phases of development of the mental health and mental health institute systems in India, because the government had passed an order in 2017 to cancel all the mental asylums, mental faith healing centers, various rehabilitation centers. So, but then here I had to really realize and see why such thing is happening. Why are the people being seen in such environment? So this psychiatric sense came around in the 18th century, and in the middle of the 19th century, architect Hippolyte Liba. So he was the first architect to treat an architectural psychiatric institution. So first mental asylum was set up. So there he used symmetrical plans, landscape. He situated the entire planning system away from an urban context. So that was the first situation where a mental asylum happened. But then later, people got recovered from that particular asylums. But then due to this overcrowding, all of a sudden mental asylums didn't work, and then suddenly psychiatric institutions came into an academic sense. So there, two concepts were basically introduced. So it was the revolving door effect and the clubhouse concept. So these concepts had a relationship with the physician and the patient. So they used to go to the outpatient ward, have counselings, treatments, and then the patient would be shifted to the inpatient rehabilitation centers where he'll be exposed to various therapies. So that was the process, and one major fact is that from the period of 1875, 1975 till now, almost the same practices are being carried out in many health, so not many, but all the mental health institutions, but now few are changing. So that is the first stage where I try to understand the reason for the development of mental asylums and mental health institutions, and then coming to the fact of the need for such mental health institution, a kind of mental health institution, but through proper planning of spaces and through providing a better environment for such people. It tells of how 1951 lakh people, around 156 crore in India, face these mental issues. So now the days are going beyond. Everyone are prone to stress, depression. So such things are being carried out. So that actually tells of how this project is much essential. So that was the basic introduction I just wanted to give you, sir. And I'll take a half a minute to explain what is the present Indian mental health condition according to the National Human Rights Commission of India and Supreme Court of India that has passed on 2017. So to just give a very conclusion of this statement, so they told that there is a need for rebuilding and revamping the existing infrastructure in these hospitals. So it is because the way people are placed, they are chained up, they're jailed. They used to have dark rooms. The type of therapies they used to give, almost in the 17th century, they used to keep in dark cells. They used to chain them up. So that was some horrible and pathetic situation. But even till now, those are the treatments. So that is the lifestyle mentally ill person is being going through. So the officials actually told that there are no proper ventilations, there are no lighting systems, no proper environment. So the people are not basically tried to understood. And coming to the doctor and patient ratio, it is just one is to 1,000. So these are the present mental health condition systems in India. And then I have just tried to segregate these into various factors. So first is, as I told, there is no evolution from 1745. So there's something called custodial architecture that is still being carried out. That is, I mean, the prison-like infrastructure, and there is no proper uniform institute in our India, because although the government had passed an order in 2017 to close all the mental health, mental asylums and faith healing centers, till till I'm sorry, sir.
What happened?
Some
Go ahead.
Okay, sir. But till now, the government hasn't dared to close all of these institutions, because all of these separate institutions follow a pattern. Few, really understand their illness. Few, get them, try to make them a part of society. Few try to make public interact with the people. Few have different therapies. So this is the reason why people have lost hope among the mental health institutions. So there are among 43 government mental health institutions in India. So there is no hope for such people to go get admitted. Okay, maybe even if I'm telling a person, my friend, okay, come, let us visit to a mental health institution. So first thing that comes to mind is that, okay, it's a very horrible space, very horrible environment. How could I really react to that situation? So even if a public enters that particular space, he should be able to get part of the therapeutic environment. He should be able to get really stress free. So so that should be the kind of imageability, and that should be a kind of hope among the public as well as the users in this institute. And then as I told, the spatial quality, even the color palette that people use is really makes their healing process much more easier. So all these factors come to the fact that there needs a reimagination of the mental health institutes in India. The basic idea, the basic importance I've tried to find out through this proposal is, sir. So first is to bring out the emotional balance among such people. It may be a very depressed guy, or it may be a mentally ill person. So there are many categories, but then there is something missing out. So that is the emotional balance. So symptoms management, improved quality of life, faster recovery opportunities. So necessary life skills should be taught, occupational skills to be taught, and the space should be in such a way that he or she should accept. The public should accept and make these people again reintegrate into the society. So these are the basic expectations and goals I have I started with my topic. Uh, so moving on so firstly I had to understand what exactly mental illness is, what are the categories of patients who are residing in India. So it is very simple, that is given by WHO. It tells it is an illness with biological, psychological, socio-economic, socio-cultural, institutional factors. So this will basically be a major contribution from a design program, and and the WHO has classified it into 9 categories under the F section. So from the basic level to the highest categorized level. So again, if it comes to India, almost 11 for every 1 lakh is facing suicidal rate in India. So these are basic facts and figures to like justify for the fact that they need some reimagination of the space, of their activities, of their therapies, various activities. So this is just to really tell the present mental health condition. And then I have tried to categorize all these 9 categories that is proposed by the World Health Organization into 15 categories according to the stage of which they get into. It may be neurodevelopmental disorders, eating disorders, anxiety disorders, OCD. So I have tried to list all these categories, and I have tried to analyze how their behavior, what psychological changes they go through, and what is the present treatment that is being followed, so that I can be able to relate what type of an artificial element or what kind of artificial intervention could be brought in my design program is what I have tried to understand from this. And then the most important thing I have tried to understand is various psychiatric treatment approaches, and I have tried to correlate with the treatment facilities that is being carried out in India. So first thing is the psychotherapeutic approach, physical approach, pharmaceutical approach, and ergotherapy. So here what I've tried to relate is with the treatment facilities that is being carried out in international context, because in India we have around 43 mental health institutions, but the treatment facilities are being still the same, sir. So I just wanted to correlate with what is happening internationally. So there we have setups into four categories. We have stationary clinic, intermediate structures, ambulatory, long-term structures. For example, in the psychotherapeutic approach, if a patient is going and approaching a doctor, so he'll have a direct relationship with the physician. So then he'll be closely monitored. His symptoms will be figured out, and then accordingly, it is a 24 hours daycare setup and a stationary clinic setup. Then he'll be sent to an inpatient setup. Then again he'll be monitored. So once he's recovered, he'll be able to integrate with the society. He'll be able to move on to the rehabilitation unit and the community unit. So that is how I actually related my treatment approach with the treatment facilities. And another most important thing I have tried to understand is about the patient. So there are many categories when it comes to mental illness, but from a patient's point of view, what actually he feels, definitely he will be depressed, he will be very stressful. Even a drug addict would be very depressed when when he's entirely locked up, when he's chained up, he's not able to move to any space. So for that, I had a reference from an article who's an advocate. She's an Ray Anziker. So she stood up for the mentally ill people rights. So here she tells to be a mental patient is to stigmatized, socialized, patronized, psychiatrized. To be a mental patient is to be diagnosed as a paralyzed, and to be a mental patient is to take drugs that dull and deaden your senses. And to be a mental patient is never to be taken seriously. To be a mental patient is to be surrounded by other mental patients. To be a mental patient is to wear a label, and to be a mental patient is never to say what you mean. So these are the basic issues what these mentally ill people feel. So when I visited for a live case study at Key Park Indian Mental Health Institute, so these observations, my observations match with the statements which the advocate proposed. So in terms of understanding the patient, it is very evident, of how his or her environment is. I felt that the already he's subjected to mental illness, and that particular space is making him much more worse. It may be, so that again correlates with all these facts of how a patient feels. So this is basically to understand what mental illness is, what the present mental health condition in India, and so those are the primary details I've tried to understand and analyze. And then moving on to the case studies part. So, firstly, this particular proposal is from the Sarbjit Singh Bagha. Is an architect. It was proposed on the year 2004. So, this is one of the a proper proposal for the mentally ill people as per the Indian context among the 43 health institutes. So, from these case studies, I've tried to analyze a few major points. So, first is the philosophy. What the architect is trying to give the mentally ill patient. How is he trying to break that stigma? What kind of approach is basically trying to achieve for a mentally ill is what I try to analyze. And then second, how is he trying to create a context? How is he trying to create an environment for the mentally ill people? And accordingly, how is he zoning spaces, and how is he organizing spaces internally, and how is maintaining this outdoor protected spaces? How is he creating a patient a room, a patient environment for the mentally ill? So when it comes to this particular Vidyasagar Institute for Mental Health, so here he wanted, so a centralized planning was the major objective for this, and he had made an artificial rural context environment apart from the very busy and bustling residential complex around. So he made, so as I was telling of how I related it to the treatment approaches, like through first the patient goes through an acute ward, then he will be monitored, then he will be into the chronic state, then he'll be able to move to the rehabilitation center, he'll be learning activities. So that was the basic program that was followed in this. So it had the various units, so improved patient units, acute care units, forensic units, chronic stay units, and a rehabilitation unit. So basically, what the architect wanted to achieve is that a patient goes to the outpatient unit and he'll have a connect with what is happening internally. So, like for example, a patient is learning something, he'll be able to he'll have a visual connect with the entire site, and then he goes through a series of phases. So after this, he's being monitored. He'll be going to the inpatient ward, and then he'll have a connect with what is happening all around. So he'll be at the same time he'll be monitored, but it will be like as if it's not monitored, because that again becomes a psychological issue. So and then he tries to learn activities. He'll be able to integrate with the surrounding patients. So that was the basic concept he tried to adopt. Um, so it was more of an institutional setup. This particular proposal was, and then moving on to the other case study by the Jark Angels group. So this proposal was to redefine the psychiatric an attempt to redefine a psychiatric institution. So there was already a hospital, a general hospital near to it, but then to reimagine or to just attempt to this particular problem, Jark Angels group proposed this. So actually, what I understood from these case studies is that coming to the spatial planning, it is very evident that these mentally people should have a visual contact with nature. Nurse station should be very quite nearby. They should have exposure to gardens, outdoor landscape areas, and the natural systems could be a part in their healing process. So these were the basic spatial organizations that were followed up, sir. So if you could see in this particular proposal, so this is the patient's room, and that will be closely monitored by the staffs. And then you have an open environment, open common rooms, common space in the center, and then that is, that has a courtyard in the middle. So he has arranged it through, this is like a clover-like structure because he feels that patients should be entirely into the outdoor landscape unit, so that it be that makes his recovery rate so much faster, either to hills, through landscape, through water bodies. And then everything is very quite nearby. He hasn't made it very linear or very decentralized. So it is very near. The proximity of each and every space is very near, such that he has an exposure towards each and every activity that is being conducted. It may be with respect to outdoor spaces, indoor spaces, therapies. So this was that. And then to understand about autism and psychiatric, in terms of psychiatric for the autism children, this was another proposal by the Soho Fujimoto architects. So here the approach was entirely different. He tells that how randomized planning method of being random, a precise accidental landscape will make children feel make go in search of their own way. How could they easily get connected with other children? So those were the very so that approach was entirely different in terms of zoning, in terms of spatial organization. So this is another case study, sir. So this I basically took to analyze what kind of the architect is trying to relate this particular proposal with society, with respect to the materials he has used, with respect to the spaces he has introduced, especially for the public interaction, and then how he has given time to organize patient's room, and how that patient's room is connected to the outdoor environment, and how that could be related to the public space. So these were the basic interventions the architect has tried to take. And other live case study is the Institute of Mental Health in Kilpak. So this I had a large understanding of what type of therapies are being given, and how the patients are organized, how the patient has an exposure towards various therapies programs, how a doctor deals with a patient, how a outpatient unit is set up, and how an inpatient unit is set up. And the recovery process is basically understood. I just wanted to understand how that recovery goes on. uh, so I had tried to.
They have a very beautiful site.
Yes, sir.
Very beautiful site. It's all fully wooded and it's a huge site.
It's a very
The
old
only problem
structure,
is
sir.
it's all delinked right now. It's all far away. They have 2 new wards. Did you see them?
Yes, sir. They're building it newly.
Illa kattitanga rendu new wards. So that has a little bit of more freedom in terms of visual connect and this thing to the outside. At the same time, the monitoring is quite nice.
Yes,
I
sir.
don't know if you've seen the 2 new, as you enter from the main gate, when you go towards the main admin, it's on the left hand side. Very nice. It's now 8 and 9. 8 and 9.
Oh, 8 and 9. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Those are.
These are
I
new
mean, the
wards.
same grammar was followed. So, that
Yeah.
seems to be.
These are both the same term. They put in new words and it's quite nice.
Yes, sir.
The prisoners ward is really bad. Okay, so those are all old wards. I think they are very, very different. Anyway, go on.
Yes, sir. So few basic observations I had gathered from the security people and even few patients who were screaming. So basic observations were that, so firstly custodial was still maintained because we cannot control such patients. So but then from 8 a.m. to 10 a.m. those people would be allowed freely, to open to any other space. But then in each and every ward has a closed fence, closed setup. But then you'll have different blocks inside. So, and coming to the categorization of the mentally ill patient, it was very randomized, which I thought that is not really suitable according to the study I did, sir. Because what they told was that although you have a drug addict, although you have a mentally retarded person, you have a depressive guy, so so all those categories were entirely mixed up. So I didn't think that was really correct in terms of that particular spatial planning. And then other thing was that these inmates go anywhere, escape and return. The security people again find them back after 3 to 4 days. They just sleep wherever they wanted. They escape and they scream a lot. And another thing is that they use so much of antidepressant drugs, so the patient remains in that particular isolated environment. He doesn't move although he has a visual contact. So coming to the IMH, it is entirely a very new context. I mean, a very different context is created. The outdoor spaces, the garden, therapeutic healing gardens, the kind of occupational therapies they have invented. So such things are there. But then the way it is organized internally, the way the student gets a look, has a look of all these things, of how is treated, how is subjected to have a proximity towards all these spaces, is something that is very much lagging, is what I observed, sir.
Okay.
So these were the basic observations and things I have got to learn from literature studies. So moving on to my site. So first thing, the reason to select this topic is this issue that has happened in Yerwadi. It is in Ramanathapuram. Have visited the site, sir. So it has almost 200 years of history. So there is a dargah, a faith healing center. It was started by the Muslim. It is a Muslim community center. So normally people from Chennai, people from Delhi, all over India, people travel to this particular site, Yerwadi, to leave their families, or leave their children, or leave their husband, daughters, whoever it is, on that particular place. And what they'll do is that they just tie this thing, a band from that is symbolically or religiously accepted by the people over there, and then they tie them over the trees. They just chain them, and then they believe that nighttime Allah would just come and cure these people, and surprisingly, almost so many people have got cured. So they still believe, and there were so many actions against that particular faith healing centers, but then still that is being continuously believed. So when I went there, the fact was that each and every week, 100 new people go to the dargah. And most importantly, what happened was that 2001 there an accident happened. So 24 people had died due to the fact that they couldn't escape themselves. So they were chained up, and at that point of time, the government took these mental health, these religious faith healing centers, mental asylums very seriously, and they proposed a government mental institute. So it was on 2017, after so much of pressure, they had proposed this mental health institute that is in Yerwadi. It is a 30-bed hospital, sir. But although it is a 30-bed hospital, I have visited the hospital, the institute. But as I was telling, the major point of this thesis is to give hope for my users. It may be mentally people, it may be to the general public, to the community social workers, to create hope. So that hope is entirely lost, and this particular site has so much of historical significance towards mental illness. So coming to that point of time, so I thought, with respect to present mental health conditions, with respect to the place that is far away from urbanization, 2001 fire accident, history of mental disorder and connection to the site, integration of community, awareness of reimagination. So I thought this will be a very an apt place for giving my reproposal. So uh, Yes, sir. So coming to the current situation in Erwadi, these are the on-site photographs I have taken. So still people around, I saw around 100 to 150 people inside that particular.
What is the extent of the site?
Sorry, sir.
What is the extent of the site? Site area is 45,000 square meters,
Yes, sir.
roughly 10 acres.
I have
10
yes,
acres
sir.
is
I
what?
have taken 10 acres, so that is very much close to the Erwadi Dargah. So I don't want to really break that religious belief, but then that will also be a point of creating hope for the mentally ill people. So this is the existing hospital. That it is a one-story building, a 30-bed hospital.
Okay.
Yes,
Fine.
sir.
I think site choice is fine. I think your presentation was very, very good. Okay. The reasoning, the presentation, the understanding is good. In the minimum, what needs to be done is there are two aspects to the whole thing, which you rightly mentioned, but not in that particular fashion. One is the patient and what he needs or he feels. The other is the guy who manages or the doctors themselves. So they need a certain things. Okay, like you said rightly, they have to be monitored without actually being feeling that they're monitored. So these kind of things you have to list it out and see the patient needs and the doctor's needs and how you dovetail both of them into your design.
Yes, sir.
Okay, but otherwise I think you're on the right track. No major problems. Uh, I thought the site here also is a good site. The one which has got IHM in Chennai. Okay, more scope, fantastic site. But everybody seems to be a good site also because it's got some historic value. உங்களுக்கு போய் அதெல்லாம் பண்ண முடியுமா இப்போ அங்க sites
I
analysis
already
எல்லாம்?
went and I just visited and came, sir.
No, but have you taken enough photographs to do an analysis, all that?
Yes, sir. I've
Okay,
spoken to
then it's
people.
okay.
I have stayed 2 days. I have met doctors, psychiatrists, and then people in the
Fine,
Dargah.
fine, fine. Also look at the Dargah people and the religious aspect of it because it is very, very integrated with the site. So
Yes,
you
sir.
might have to provide something of that nature also. So don't take it away because that's the primary thing the site has.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so look at both aspects of it and see how you can blend them. Okay,
Okay, sir.
good job, Sai Theja.
So, Teja, if I make, have just, I don't think I have much to say as a feedback. Okay, I now understand why this panel has your name in the last. It's actually very helpful to have you as the last one because, just like you kind of doze off when you're tired. Afternoon lectures are normally very sleepy. And you look at so many students in the morning, it kind of drains out your energy. Positive, negative, whatever, it kind of drains out your energy. And then to see a presentation where what we see is interest and consistency in holding on to that interest. You sustained your interest in every single slide. Okay, it was not like you were flipping a few slides just because you did not have much to say about it. Very well practiced and very well articulated. Okay, it's really content to see a presentation like this at the end of the day specifically. And to add a few points, what I would want you as a word of caution is the religious faith and beliefs in this, the sentiments that are associated with it, which are not always scientifically backed. Be very careful when you tread in those areas, right? What happens is everything else that you do is already questionable and debatable. Okay, you are delving into the intangible, right? The standards that we have, there is a way of justifying those standards for physically challenged. But when it comes to mentally ill, we are purely still, it's a working model. So it's not complete yet. The more
Yes, sir.
we experiment on spaces and projects, the standards gets evolved. But when does it get evolved? You need to monitor, study the data, study the behavior, see if there is any positive change. It has to be approved, and then you see like that. See, for the last so and so many years, this was practiced, and I think we need to go back to the rule book and says that if you do this, it works. So it's a constantly changing domain. Okay, it's shaking and it's growing all the time.
Yes,
So
sir.
you have to acknowledge that fact. Like, question yourself, why did the other projects fail? Was it because of the certain timeline in which it was? It's not like there was a lack of architectural technology or lack of infrastructure, because of which these projects are ending up becoming so bad projects, right? So there also, please clearly draw a line within which you can work as an architect. Don't get too attached, don't over glorify your limitations and powers, and please work very carefully. The word of caution that I would like to address again is the standards with which you work. Since it is intangible and since it is constantly evolving, I want you to be aware of this fact, okay? Because what you quote right now as this is the right way to do, or this is what I have seen, in every other project we will look at that separately, but in your project you will be looked at separately, right? Your learnings from these case studies, the first thing we will look at is, are those projects very recent past or far past? How old are these practices done? And are there readings from observations and performance indexes documented by the way these people behaved? Did it create a positive change? Has it been authenticated by the concerned authorities? Okay, I'm speaking only within the architectural domain. I'll give you a parallel example. We have projects that are energy saving, right? We give them IGBC rating and LEED rating and all that. There are no systems in place for you to go and keep measuring equipments and say that are these buildings actually performing for that category? If you give a platinum rating saying that this building is performing in energy level so much, is it only a rating process in the conception of the project or the performance of the project? If you look at the energy consumption, like the lighting cost, the AC cost of that building for 10 years, and then you gauge whether this building's performance is actually worthy of that rating, most of these buildings will lose their rating if you do that, right? But here we are talking about clear scientific ways of evaluating the standards of the standard criteria. But in your case, that criteria keeps evolving. Rather than changing, I should say keeps evolving. Be very, very conscious of what are the content, how old are these best practices. When I mean content, best practices. You will purely have to work with best practices mode in your case. It is not a case study in your case. You are just quoting best practices. See how old they are and how documented they are. Okay, it becomes a very bearing point in your design approach, what I feel. Sir, what do you think about this, sir?
No, see, he has nothing to fall back upon because there are very few designed institutes. Okay, so whatever they have done is like adaptive reuse of existing buildings or something that they had over there. So, like you said, he has to create his own pathway. But
yes,
in doing that, fall back upon established norms. Okay, so
yes,
you can move from there. Somebody asks you, you can always say it was here. I moved it from here to here in this premise. It's like when you said most of it is like jail. Yeah, like I told you, the new wards are not like jails anymore. Why? The people can actually see outside the entire landscape visually connected, and they have an inner courtyard where they can experience the landscape inside. Yes, they can physically go and actually enjoy the space without going into a outside area where they are not supposed to go.
True, sir.
Okay, I'll tell you this example of this guy who took me around in IHM. Okay, he took me around for nearly 1 hour. I visited all the wards. Okay,
yes, sir.
And then at the end of the day, somebody came and told me, "Sir, ivaru inga da irundaru." Oh, so he's actually an inmate from that place. Okay, I didn't even feel it. Okay, so he's cured. So then I asked him, "Nenga neenga vandu innum inga irukkinga na vella pona innum enna paithiyakarana da nenikranga." See, that's a stigma.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So, yeah, so he cannot go out. Nobody is accepting him. His relatives don't accept him. But to me, he seems so natural till the fact that somebody told me that he is from here. It was so natural that he was normal. Okay, so that's how people are. Okay, so we have to really create a space for them to become better. அதுதான் உங்க சேலஞ்ச், nothing else. You can't say he can get cured. அதெல்லாம் ஒண்ணுமே கிடையாது. Become better. So how do you go about doing it? What are the criteria you employ? And architecturally, how you achieve it? இவ்வளவுதான் your challenges.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
There are no fixed norms. Like Vijayendra said, மற்றதுக்கெல்லாம் norms எல்லாம் இருக்கு. Okay, இதுல fixed norm கிடையாது. Okay, you have to evolve your own norms from what you learnt earlier and move on. And that is where your architectural skill will come to fore and your understanding of the project. I think that is your challenge.
Yeah.
Yes, sir, sure, sir.
Okay.
I'll do that, sir.
But also, Sai TEJA, it also gives you the liberty to look at parallel examples. Okay, you don't really have to look for examples
Correct.
mentally ill institutes. That's a liberty that you will have. For example, இப்போ ஒரு ஹாஸ்பைஸ் பில்டிங் கருணாஸ்ரயா எனக்கு அது ரொம்ப பிடிக்கும், அதனால நான் அடிக்கடி கோட் பண்றேன். அந்த பில்டிங் எடுக்கிறீங்கன்னா அந்த பில்டிங்க்கு மட்டும் என்ன ஸ்டாண்டர்ட்ஸ் இருந்திருக்கும்னு நினைக்கிறீங்க? ஹாஸ்பைஸ்க்கு மட்டும் என்ன ஸ்டாண்டர்ட்ஸ் இருக்கு? ஸ்பேஷியல் ஸ்டாண்டர்ட்ஸ் இருக்கும். அதாவது இத்தனை பேர் ரூம் கொடுத்தீங்கன்னா இவ்வளவு சைஸ் இருக்கணும், அந்த மாதிரி ஸ்பேஷியல் ஸ்டாண்டர்ட்ஸ் தான் இருக்குமே தவிர architectural language and volumetric analysis, now there is nothing stopping you. So when it comes to being able to the evaluators or the caretakers being able to keep an eye on them and manage them, you can actually try and look at the best prison design.
Correct. Today's designs are like very good. Yeah.
Okay, அதுல prison design நான் ரொம்ப இன்ட்ரெஸ்டிங்கா பார்த்தது என்னன்னா, எப்பவுமே பாரு ஒரு ஃபன்னியான விஷயம் பிரிசன்ல என்னன்னா, நம்பர் ஆஃப் பிரிசனர்ஸ் வில் பி 1/10 ஆஃப் த நம்பர் ஆஃப் கார்ட்ஸ் வில் பி 1/10 ஆஃப் த பிரிசனர்ஸ். தே வில் எனி டைம் பி அவுட் நம்பர்ட். ஆனாலும் there is a sense of control that prevails there. எப்படின்னா, it is designed that at no point you can gather. You can see that you are being outnumbered அப்படிங்கறத ஒரு இடத்துல நீ அதை நடக்கவே விட மாட்டாங்க. They break it down. உன் செல்ல நீ வெளில வந்தனா இன்னொரு 4 பேர் தான் இருக்கும் அந்த இடத்துல. சோ உன்னை அங்கேயே பாசிஃபை பண்ணி கண்ட்ரோல் பண்ணிடலாம். There was a hospital, I can't recollect, I'll find out because I'm still in touch with the student who did that. I think it's in Netherlands or Switzerland, I'm not sure. There was a mental health institute where they actually applied it, saying that a person, whether he has to socialize with others, is actually depending upon the number of people in that group. Okay, so what they did is, they gave room layout in such a way that if you open your door, you don't look at another door, first of all. If you step out, you have taken the first step for socializing. From being a complete introvert, when you cross the door, you're open, you're presenting yourself for interaction. So the next thing you do is just one more door. When both of them step out, there is a third door for them both to walk out. And when that happens, there are only 2 more doors. So sequentially break panni, they studied which one of those actually come out into the 8th door where the entire population is there. So they gave you levels to choose yourself. People slowly move from 4th door to 8th door to 9th door and lastly. Okay, இப்போ நீங்க சொன்ன ஒரு ப்ராஜெக்ட்ல கூட அது இருந்தது. ஸ்டாகரிங் பண்ணிருந்தாங்க. Evaluate, assess, give them the time for recuperate and then get them. அந்த மாதிரி there are architectural language that you can take from parallel examples and apply. That liberty you have. So அது வந்து உங்க dissertation should help, and the lateral thinking should help you. You should not be stuck on the idea of looking for best practices only in similar projects. Try thinking beyond these also. Okay, that's I would say the first part I said is a challenge, but this part I'm telling you is an advantage.
Sure, sir.
Okay, you can take best practice from any typology of project.
You have an open field, so you can experiment. Okay, like Vijender said, in a prison there are various things like being experimented. Today, what they do, they give you more liberties in a prison, and to achieve that, they exhibit better behavior. If you're better behaved, you get a better accommodation. So these are incentives. Incentivizing a guy to become better is today's prison norm. Earlier, அப்படி கிடையாது, அடிச்சு தான் பண்ணுவாங்க. இப்ப அப்படி கிடையாது. So there are various means of achieving things. Use it, like old age homes. Same principle. If he goes into his room, he is private. If he comes out, he is semi-private. He can have a group, but the next phase is a larger group. So he chooses which group he wants to be in, a larger group or a smaller group. This comfort level. அதேதான் இங்கேயும். ஒரு தனியா இருக்கும்போது he is okay. When he goes into a smaller group, he may be okay, not be okay. When he goes to a larger group, he can become violent because of numbers, etc. So it all depends on how you perceive the whole thing. Your spatial organization keeps changing due to that. So you really can evolve in this design. Okay. Good. I think it's a good presentation. Thank you for that lovely presentation. Yeah.
Thanks, Sai TEJA. Great work. Thank you. Great the day.
Selvendran, hi.
Yes, sir. Bye, sir. How are you, sir?
நான் ஹாய் சொன்ன பாய் சொல்றீங்க.
Okay. எனக்கு பாய் கேட்டது ஆக்சுவலா. நாதரால
ஹாய் சொன்ன.
Okay. Hi, sir. How are you, sir?
Good, Selvendran. Long time.
Okay, yes, sir.
ரொம்ப நாள் ஆச்சு பார்த்து. Okay.
Yes, sir.
We'll catch up. Thank you guys.
Thank you, sir.
I think overall good. There were 1 or 2 which were quite lacking. So அதை மட்டும் கொஞ்சம் concentrate.
Sure, sir.
Yeah.
Sure. So you have the sheets needed for evaluation, sir? That file
yes, I have them. I'll have them. I'll send
Just let me know if you need any clarity on that, sir.
Sure. Thank you.
So it's nice, sir. It's nice being on this platform for the first time. I'm new here. You might not know every one of my colleagues, but I'm glad
No,
to have
don't
this
worry,
break
don't
session with you. Thank you, sir.
I've got to know you better now. So
Thank you, sir.
good.
Thanks a lot. Thanks.
Bye bye.
Bye, sir.
Okay.
Bye.
Now,
Thanks,
bye,
Sai
sir.
Theja.